Good evening and welcome to Brighton Town Hall. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the July 25th, 2018 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. As always, we welcome public participation in our meetings. It's great to see people here tonight, as we usually do. But we know not everybody that participates in this meeting does so from this auditorium. And we welcome all of you that are watching on cable channel 1303 or that are streaming on our YouTube channel from our webpage. If you are here in the room, tonight's agenda, along with all of the supporting material, is in the back of the room on the back table. If you are watching remotely, all of that same material is available on the town's webpage, www.townofbrighton.org. All of the same material that's on our computer screens would be on your computer screen. And we'll be proceeding with the meeting very shortly. I do want to note that occasionally we can experience technical difficulties with our cable channel. If you should experience a problem with the audio or the video, please contact Spectrum at 756-5000. That's 756-5000. Now, I have been made aware that there is a technical problem with our cable broadcast hard drive tonight. We don't anticipate any problem with the broadcast, but it is possible at 8 o'clock that it will automatically switch over to other programming, and because of the hard drive problem, there is not going to be anything we can do about that. But that will only affect Spectrum channel 1303. You will still be able to watch it on our YouTube streaming channel at the town's webpage. I do want to note as well that if you hear our emergency alarm, please leave the room and leave the building immediately, either through the door to my right, marked with the exit sign, turn right, go down the stairs and out the back door of Town Hall and away from the building, or through the double doors in the rear of the room, through the lobby, out the main front doors of Town Hall, and again, away from the building if that should happen. Going to start with the pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask Councilmember Warner if you would lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, we will start tonight with our open forum as we do at every meeting. As always, if you would like to address the board during the open forum, please raise your hand. I will call on you. I would ask you to come up to the podium. We've got some extra microphones there, so just try not to knock them over. If you would, when you do, please state your name and address just for the record. I would note that we do have two public hearings tonight. We have a public hearing concerning the proposed demolition of a structure located at 20 Norman Road in the town of Brighton. We also have a public hearing on the proposed local law that would prohibit smoking and vaping on all town property, including our town parks. So if you're here to speak about either one of those items, I would encourage you to wait until the public hearing is actually called.
Supervisor, just an oversight on my part. Actually, that's 202 Norman Road and should read on the agenda, not 20. The agenda does read 20, but it should read 202.
202 Norman Road, thank you. I don't want to scare anybody in the wrong house. Oops, thank you. Now, if you are watching remotely, you can call in, as always, to participate in our open forum. The phone number is 303-3060, 303-3060. someone will take your call and relay your question or comment to me. We can't always answer questions right on the spot, but we will get your question or comment and make sure everybody hears it. And in addition, for our deaf or hearing impaired audience, we have our TDD line, and that phone number is 784-5205. So for people who are deaf, you can also participate in the open forum by use of our TDD line at 784-5205. And with that, we'll start the open forum. Is there anybody here that would like to address the board during the open forum? Can I? Sure.
Do I just speak into all of them, or?
That's a very good question. I think if you're close enough to the little stick one, they'll all pick it up. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name's Kanaya Vickers. I live at 2640 Highland Ave. So I'm here today to speak about the racism that has been occurring in the town of Brighton, at their central schools specifically. And I want the pressure I feel every day in the Brighton community, and I want you guys to feel that pressure and to help the town and the community apply that pressure to Brighton Central School Districts to help us make some change. We aren't uncomfortable in predominantly white spaces, but it's been proven to us that predominantly white spaces are uncomfortable with us. And when I say us, I mean people of color or minority groups that reside in Brighton or attend Brighton Central Schools. We believe that the town of Brighton doesn't have the equity of black humans in Brighton as a top priority. And being a black human in Brighton, you can see how this can be an issue for me. A lot of times we're told that the schools and the town are separate, but at the end of the day, Brighton schools are in the town of Brighton. So we feel like, and when I say we again, I mean people of color or minority groups, we feel like if the town of Brighton were to recognize this issue and make it one of your top priorities, you could help us influence the Brighton Central School Districts to treat us equal, not just giving us equality, but also equity, because equality is nothing without that equity. And my main question is, what do you plan on doing to help living in Brighton, attending Brighton schools, or being in the town of Brighton as a whole? How do you plan on making it comfortable for minority groups or people of color?
Thank you, Kanaya. There were a few questions in there, and I think it's important to start by letting you know that for me personally, but I know for the town as a whole, equity and ensuring that Brighton is a diverse community in fact and not just in name is an important priority. Many of you have heard me say that there are, to my mind, three core values that I prioritize whenever I'm looking at policy decisions: education, diversity, and sustainability. That's indicative that the fact that diversity is one of those three, of the significance of that. And it is indeed groups of different, whether populations of different faith communities, different racial or ethnic backgrounds, the LGBTQ community. It is important to me that all communities feel that Brighton is not only accepting, but welcoming, celebrating, and making people truly believe that this is all of our hometown. So I appreciate you raising it. We are going to be naming people to our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board. And that board, as I have indicated, its first two priorities, one inward-looking and one outward-looking. Inwardly, we will be working to make sure that the town of Brighton is using best practices ourselves in our operations, whether it's to deal with issues relating to race, socioeconomic issues, disability, the whole range, LGBTQ issues, to make sure that our own policies are appropriate to address. And the second is a more outward-looking one, and that is to develop a diversity plan for the town of Brighton. I believe that's an important thing. I do not believe that there is a single town in upstate New York that has such a plan, but I don't think there's a single town in upstate New York that's quite like Brighton. And I do believe that's a priority. That's why we're going to be appointing that board. That's not going to be an easy task. We've seen work product from other towns in other states, but I think whatever plan we do is going to be adapted to Brighton's needs. Now, developing a plan is not something that is done quickly. We're going to talk later about our upcoming comprehensive plan, land use plan, sustainability plan for the town, and that's been the product of about 2 years' worth of work. So putting together a plan to address issues of diversity is also going to be something that will take some time. Is it a priority? Absolutely. And I appreciate your question, Kanaya. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? Hearing, yes, sir. Mr.
Is it a matter of just speaking?
Just, yeah, absolutely. If you would, just please state your name and address.
Sure. My name is Howard Eagle. I live in Rochester, 35 Barbridge Drive, 14610.
Thank you.
I'm here representing the Take It Down Planning Committee, Faith Community Alliance, and Movement for Anti-Racist Ministry and Action Coalition, one of Rochester's premier anti-racist organizations. And I just stopped by to say that we're paying attention and that we are aware that you have problems and issues around what we call the tripartite beast of individual, institutional, and structural racism in your school district. And it's not because we say so. We're hearing this from students. We're hearing it from parents, that you have ongoing problems and issues that haven't been addressed, that have been raised for some time now. And our understanding is that your top educator does not really understand the tripartite beast and illness, that your top educator, the superintendent of your school district, needs some education himself in terms of being able to distinguish between entities such as the Black Lives Matter movement as opposed to white supremacy groups. Apparently, based on the information that we've received, he sees them as basically on the same footing in terms of having access to your institution, and that's problematic. So we stopped by to say that we can help, right, in terms of education, and we assume that if your top educator needs education, then the rank and file probably do too, if not all of them, certainly most of them, and we can help. That's what we came by to say, and we also want to be clear that we could not in good conscience call ourselves anti-racist activists if people are contacting us about these issues and problems and they're not addressed and we don't do anything. So we won't tolerate for Black children, parents, and we assume other children and parents of color to be abused and mistreated and so forth without anything happening. So we want to say that if you need our help in terms of coming into your schools, and I guess it's your high school in particular, to stand guard, to make sure that young people get an equitable education and so forth, have equitable opportunity for a good education, we're willing to do that too. We imagine you wouldn't want to do that kind of thing. That harkens back to, the 1950s and 60s when we had to have soldiers, had to have the military come into schools to ensure that, into predominantly white schools to ensure that black children and other children of color had an equal opportunity. So we assume you wouldn't want that kind of thing, but I'm just saying we're willing if you need it. We wouldn't necessarily want that either, but at the same time, again, we just can't, allow for people to be abused with impunity and do nothing. So we're willing to help if you need our help in terms of providing education, expertise, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elam. And I have read some of your writings about what you've described as the tripartite beast, and I think, frankly, all of us, from the top to the rank and file, we should never stop learning. We should never stop addressing important issues of racism, equity in our communities. So thank you for your input. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? Yes, come on up.
My name is Atisha Benjamin, and I live in 12 Corners. I just wanted to speak about what makes this a town board issue, because I know maybe some people had that reaction of this is a school district, what makes this connected to the board. But I would say that what connects it is families, right? Families make up the community, which the town board is primarily concerned for, and families make up the school district. And what I want to talk a little bit about is my family's experience, first of all, which is I've been here a decade. I have 4 children. My husband and I rented, and we bought a house in 12 Corners. And my daughter, who is now 19, cried her way through Brighton High School, oftentimes over this very word. My son, who is 10 years old, has been called that N-word 3 times in this community. Twice in our neighborhood, once by a child, once by an adult, and once by a child in school. I think the adult was inebriated, I will say that.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It's not
matter.
acceptable.
Doesn't matter. So my child, like I said, cried her way through Brighton High over this word. And I just want to say that it goes back to families again by how are you teaching your children? And I'm glad to hear of all that you said, Mr. Moelli, about what will be coming and plans that are in the works to maybe push forward change. But I think someone needs to speak about what's happening in families. Are these conversations coming up? Are parents teaching their children that to be racially sensitive has to do with kindness and empathy and love and respect? That's really what it is. You can't teach and encourage your children to be kind and empathetic and just hush-hush, not really speak about brown and black people and equity and kindness and what is okay and what's not. I don't want to be a jerk, so I don't use racial epithets. I want to be a good person. And if I know a certain group is sensitive to a certain word, I just don't want to use that word. So why are these children then? I just want to speak specifically to this. What's happening or not happening in families that some of these children, and I know what's happening, are using that word? Some might say they're racist, some might say they're not, but I would say at the very least, they are being insensitive and they are being jerks. That's really what it comes down to. Why is that? Are there no conversations happening in the homes? Because if you don't have the talk, just like with other important things, society will sort of fill that space with slightly racist and bigoted speech, or slightly misogynistic or very misogynistic speech. So thank you to the families that are talking to your children about this. I really appreciate you. And you know it's important that your kids be racially sensitive, because with AI, artificial intelligence rising, all of our kids are going to be competing for jobs on a global marketplace. So it is in their best interest to know how to get along, how to not be sort of sensitive around people of color. And that has to do with exposure, exposing your children. That has to do with promoting kindness and talking about these things in their homes. And that's what I wanted to say, but I'll end with one more thing. As I prepared my thoughts today and yesterday, there was one thing that I wanted to mention that I didn't think I would mention. But I saw something today that causes me to want to say something. Our children learn from their families and their communities. It takes a village. And our children also learn from signage. And as I've driven through our neighborhoods, I've seen a couple Black Lives Matter postcard or placards in yards. But interestingly, I've also seen a rise in the cop flag, the black, blue, and black stripe. First Amendment, everybody can raise their flag, whatever. But today I saw a flag that caused me to have to say this. It was a cop flag, American flag, and the skull all merged into one, a sort of dripping skull. I saw this in Brighton. What are our children learning, not only from our families, but also from the signage in the community? Because our kids are not stupid. They know what that means. And if they have a tendency to antagonize their classmates with fiery words, they know what that flag means. And does that embolden them? Who's discouraging them? Very, very last thing, I would like to see a curriculum in Council Rock throughout to Brighton High that is more of a sensitivity, racial sensitivity, emotional sensitivity curriculum. So that if that is diverse. I don't want to take up too much time, but if it's not already in the works, I would like to see something like that be implemented that is very, very in-depth about teaching kids to be racially sensitive so that they don't have to be in 4th grade saying the N-word or hearing the N-word at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that Michael?
Hi, my name is Mike Boucher, 204 Antlers Drive here in Brighton. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. First, I would just like to thank Kanaya and Wynette and their family for coming forward with this story. So as a white person living in Brighton, but as a white person in any society, generally, if it's not my experience, I may not get to hear about it. So there was a tremendous gift given to us as a town by people speaking of their experience. I also know that anytime a person of color speaks about their experience, they run the risk of being targeted, dismissed, denied, minimized, and all those kinds of things. So I would hope we don't do that with this story, because it's also not an isolated story. I am a member of CURB, but I don't speak for CURB, which is the Community Uprooting Racism in Brighton. We've been around for numerous years, but I know I've had conversations with some of the people on the board and in this community since 2014, 2013, since I've been in Brighton. And so it's not a brand new issue. And so I'd really hope we could address it with increased vigor, because as much as there are plans to move forward, my concern is, so what happens to the people today? What happens to all the kids who will, even if it's a 5-year plan, which I can appreciate the need for planning, what happens to all the young people who are coming up today? What happens to the families today, tomorrow? And I also know I've done some history on Brighton itself, and just some of the deeds, the very deeds of Brighton, spoke directly of exclusion of people of color. They could not be sold to people of color. And Jews, yes, who were considered people of color at the time. And so I know the laws have changed, so those deeds are no longer enforceable. And yet, I guess the weight of history is such that if there is not proactive and active resistance to that, so much will continue with its own inertia. And as a white person, oftentimes I know I can minimize how much it takes on my part to resist, because the current is so strong in my favor in so many ways in terms of privilege. So I would just really encourage the town board to take this seriously in terms of both the educational piece, because what the town does too is also another form of education. It's not just what happens in our schools. How the town is, the stances it takes, and all those pieces would be pieces of the education in addition to the recommendations that are specific to the school district. So thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Yes. Come on, come by. Yep.
My name is Sarah Terrace, and I live in Brighton. I moved back here about 4 years ago from the Boston area. I grew up in this area. So I don't really know where to start except to say it's 2018, in case people didn't know that. So I feel like the conversation that we're having shouldn't be had now. I think this should have ended years and years ago, so it's kind of shocking that we're still having this conversation. I do want to sort of say that there are some things Brighton is trying to do well. I'm on the curriculum council, which I think has been great, but there were a lot of things that happened this year that kind of shocked me. We had a group of students from the Mosaic Club and from the Black Student Union. Some of their stories, not just about things that happened to them with fellow students in school, but things that happened to them with teachers in school, were pretty horrifying, I would say. And I was really disheartened that within the room that day, the superintendent and the principal were sitting there and didn't say anything. Even though we all heard the stories and nothing happened. At the end, they were asked, well, what were your positive experiences in high school? Rather than jumping on these awful stories that they had just told us. So that was really unhappy day for everybody sitting in the audience, I thought, but that might just be me. So that was one thing. Another thing that I felt was kind of disheartening is one of the things that has come up in Curriculum Council was the lack of teachers and administrators in this town of color. And somebody said, well, it's not like we can just hire teachers and administrators of color. You can, actually. So that was also something that I didn't really understand how that was an answer. But so I feel like there are a lot of conversations that have to be had, not just at school, but in the town. And to the last woman's point about starting young, two things that happen in Council Rock and Frez are the Colonial Day dress-up thing and the, what is the other one, the Family Heritage Day that happens. Those things are really offensive, and I don't think that, I don't think a lot of white people like consider that to, you know, like, okay, first of all, a lot of white people, they come here, they don't realize like 5 and 6 generations, like they're like, oh, I'm Italian American or Irish American or whatever, even though their families came here 5 and 6 generations ago. It's like, okay, well, if you're a person of color, what was your family 5 or 6 generations ago? Think about it. Make the leap. So there's that. And also, dressing up like an Indian for colonial days was sent home as like an option for kids. That's not okay. And the fact that it was taught as colonial days, as though like everybody was all happy and everything was great, also not okay. So I feel like, you know, just talking to kids early on, you know, sort of literally and figuratively whitewashing history when kids are in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, it matters. I think talking to kids in first, second grade, it matters how you present things, because that is an age where they remember in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Those are really formative years. So to have colonial days, to have, you know, family heritage days, all of these things, that's kind of where it starts. And I think, you know, the town really could get involved in some of this stuff by doing different things to celebrate different things than that on a larger scale. So I feel like there's a big disconnect between the town and the school. And I think that is very unfortunate. And there are a lot of really easy fixes in Brighton, one of which I have been lobbying about that, I'm sort of considered insane for doing this, but whatever, I'm going to tell you about it anyway. The mascot, big problem. It's a baron. Anybody know what a baron is? It's a white man who owns things. You want to know what they own? People. So one of the things that happens is when you are somebody who comes to that school and you don't happen to be white, the first thing that you see is a baron. That's really not welcoming. And that is a very easy fix. All we have to do is take out the floor of the gym and change the name. You're laughing, it's really an easy fix. I am sure we can get someone to take the floor out of the gym. I am sure people would step forward if we did a fundraiser. We do fundraisers for microwaves. We can definitely do a fundraiser for a floor, right? These are very easy fixes, and I don't know why they aren't being done. It is not hard. We can have a petition go around town to fix the name of the mascot. It could be a bear. That begins with B. It could be, there's all kinds of animals that start with B. It doesn't have to be a baron. And there's all kinds of other things that can happen at school that are very simple. And they are not done, and I don't get that. There are big, big, big things that, I get that stuff takes time. That I get. But some of these other things are really simple fixes, and they could make a huge difference. I think it would make a big difference if the school didn't have a baron as a mascot. Right away, that would be a big difference. So these things are like easy fixes that make a huge difference. And I think that if the town and the school work together to be a more welcoming environment for people of color, maybe more people of color would move here. Maybe more students of color would feel more comfortable here and more welcomed here. But that doesn't happen. And so I think the fact that it doesn't happen creates an environment where people feel entitled to say the N-word or to say horrible things. Because nobody else, because there's nothing in the environment here that tells them they can. And, so I could go on and on and on, so I won't, but you get the idea. So anyway, I'm done.
Thank you. I don't think there's anybody in the room that doesn't agree with one of your very first statements that none of us thought in 2018 that conversations like these wouldn't be a thing of the past. They should be a thing of the past. They aren't, they can't be right now. And I think at least one difference that is a very positive sign for our community, because a lot of these problems, as we all know, are not unique, whether it's the restrictive covenants, whether it's the use of the N-word, whether any number of the things. But I think it is important that the conversations are happening in Brighton, and they have continued to happen throughout in Brighton. And a little introspection is a good thing. I'll just share. You talk about the town's role, and let me give you an example, because I do think it's important to listen. That's why we have these open forums. I became aware of concern, and immediately it was clear to me that the concerns were well-founded, with events that our recreation department had done for some time, nice events, but with a name that suggested something that wasn't consistent with our own policies of inclusion, and that was a daddy-daughter event. And it's wonderful if daddies and daughters want to go to this event. It's also wonderful if two daddies and their daughter want to go to this event. It's wonderful if a mommy and the daughter want to go to this event. Whatever the nature of the family, a grandfather, an uncle, this is a community that, in our mind, we thought it was important not to send a message that families that are not headed by a man and a woman are just as valid, just as important to this community as those that are. So while the information on those events were already out, our recreation department, and I give Becky Cotter, our recreation director, a lot of credit because she responded, made the changes, and in the future, the name will be consistent with our policies, which is we do welcome uncles and mommies and whomever, whatever that family relationship, because that's what's important with an event like that, is having good family time, whatever the structure of the family. And we're, so those are the kind of things that listening to people, whether it's at an event like this or an email that may cross my desk, is important. So thank you for your comments. Is there, yes, Sean?
Hi, Sean Singh, Danforth Crescent. I just want to clarify in my own mind. I heard you mention the diversity and equity group that was forming. It is not yet up and running.
That's correct.
And there is the plan that is also coming.
That is one of the
Eventually, long-term?
two most, what I believe, first priority work products that need to come out.
So those are two long-term goals. I'm hearing immediate needs. I would like to challenge the board to not wait on the group and the plan to start addressing these and appoint someone from the board to start looking at these issues.
What I don't want to do is have, cross purposes. We believe that we talk to a lot of people in addressing the plan, but in addressing the committee, but there's nothing that says that the committee, just like the example that I just gave, when we become aware of an issue, we don't need a committee any more than we needed that committee to address that particular inequity. We addressed it.
I would like
So
to
that will
speak
be
to
an
a
ongoing.
person. I would like to know who that person is who's going to be working
It's me.
on that. Okay.
The buck stops here.
All
I mean,
right.
in all honesty, Sean, the buck stops here.
All right.
It really
Well,
does.
I
Thank
will
you.
be in touch with you to hear
do.
what
And
you find.
I invite you, and I invite everybody, that I hear from you, that it be a two-way. Chief Henderson and I, Michael, some others, we have had informal meetings. The chief has been very active in work with the faith community, but I welcome input, whether I hear it in a setting like this or an email, or give me a call and have coffee.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Look forward to it.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? Yes.
Hi, my name is Milo Ehrenberg, and I lived in Brighton from the age of 5 until 18, and then I went around and I came back. But yeah, so I came 100% through the Brighton Central School District system, so I wanted to, speak from that perspective, which is that, as a white person, we all learn racism throughout our life, starting as children, as infants. And absolutely, I learned racism from many aspects in society, and I learned it from my parents, but I also learned racism from the school I went to, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I also remember colonial days from French Road Elementary School, but another thing that I recalled while I was just jotting down my thoughts, I wasn't really expecting to speak, was Civil War Days. And at Civil War Days, there really has to be a better way to teach or create an educational experience about the Civil War than to send a 10-year-old girl home with a 10-year-old white girl home with an assignment to dress up as a Southern belle for school the next day. Another thing that I noticed from having I had sort of a unique perspective there. Because I had ADHD, but I excelled in other areas, I was put in special ed for some classes, and I was put in AP for other classes, and the racial disparity in those classes was very apparent. And I think, yeah, that's something that definitely isn't addressed nearly enough. And this is a statistic that I looked up after I went to college, and I think I found a website where you can look it up, but it's from 2010, which is that there is a twofold disparity in ISS and suspension between Black and Latino students and white students at Brighton High School, and that's as of 2010. And this is a problem that, yeah.
It is actually more than that.
It is?
7 to 1 for Brighton High School and almost 8 to 1 for TCMS.
Wow.
And that has been presented to the school district. I personally presented with help from CURB, so they are very well aware of that.
Yeah.
It has come from that yet.
Yeah, and I mean, and like you said, almost all the staff, I think I remember one guidance counselor that was Black, but out of all the teachers and staff, I only remember one that was Black. So this is important, you know, for white students like me, but it's so important for Black students and Black children to be able to see that the world isn't structured like in a white at the top sort of manner. And if you make the school that way, if that's the way you present it, then you know, all the children at the school are going to assume that this is the way society works. And you know, it doesn't matter how many, like, you know, liberal kind of, you know, we don't see race types of things, you know, your parents tell you, like, you're still going to internalize that hierarchy. We didn't start learning about, and like, I have to give Brighton High School a little bit of credit, which is that many of the public schools I've heard of don't teach any negative things about colonialism, and I guess some negative aspects were mentioned, but that didn't happen until high school. And we have to understand that it's a very international school. We have kids coming from all over the world, including places that have been negatively affected for hundreds of years by that colonialism that we've been glorifying for the past, you know, 6 to 8 years of education. You know, it took me, it's funny, it took me till going to college, and I actually went to college at a relatively white liberal arts school, but at that school, there was a pro-Black action my first year, and I didn't start thinking about these concepts until then. And if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have started critically, you know, looking at these things at all. As a white person, we don't really have an obligations to think about it this way. And like, I really did, like these were huge shortcomings from my Brighton High School education, and there really were elements that I did value, and I know that but like, this is something that if we continue structuring our education in this way, then you know, talking about changing it from like colonial days to old-timey days or whatever we're going to change it to, like, isn't going to change it. Like, that's a very superficial sort of change. We need to figure out how to make a real tangible difference and figure out a way to teach anti-racism at every aspect in learning of Brighton High School. And until then, like, you know, kids probably are going to throw around the N-word because they don't understand they don't understand, they think it's okay to inhabit that system. And we need to show them a different world. And that's
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? Well, I do. Oh, sure, come on.
Hi, my name is Sean Dobbin. I live on Westland Avenue. I'll be brief. I'm half white and half Korean. I do not consider myself persecuted in any way. That's why I'm here. I'm here because I'm a Brighton graduate. Chief Henderson was then Officer Henderson, was my DARE officer in 5th grade. And I want to share that as an 18-year-old Brighton student, if you had asked me, did you have a diverse experience at Brighton? Did you feel this was equitable? I would have said, yeah. We read Huckleberry Finn. I saw Happy Kwanzaa on the wall a couple of times, right? I had a very diverse experience in Brighton. We got this figured out. It took until I got to the outside of the Brighton bubble that I realized that that is not the case. And so why do I bring that up? I bring that up because I want you folks to be aware that if you speak to people who are inside of it right now, if you speak to white students or white faculty members or white school board members or white administrators, they will tell you the same thing I would have told you when I was 18 years old. We got this figured out. That's what they've said to some folks here already when they brought their issues. So please listen to the people of color, listen to the families of color who have come out and spoken. These are their experiences, not ours. So please listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum?
Hi, my name is Alexei Tatanoff. I live on Roosevelt Road, just off of Monroe. I've lived in Brighton for about 9 years now, and I would say that I've been disappointed in the school district, and I haven't been impressed by the town board in the past couple of years that I've been aware of the meetings. And what I would like for the town board to consider is taking some action and explaining and keep explaining why racism doesn't benefit the residents of the town, doesn't benefit the people perpetrating racism, and certainly doesn't benefit the people being targeted by racism. I like the things that this young lady talked about, simple things that can be explained in a non-judgmental way, that explain why this does not serve every person in the long term. And it doesn't have to be in a racially charged manner. It could be done in a calm, relaxed manner, explaining why this ultimately does not serve you, does not serve me, does not serve all of us. And I would encourage more people to use counter speech to explain why these things really do not serve us, and explaining some of the history as to why it was done this way, and now what we're going to do to say that was not a good thing to do then, and what we're going to do now to change that. So I would encourage you guys to take action in the short term and in the long term. Thank you for considering.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hi, I was not going to speak because I was going to let my daughter have her platform, but I need to say something. So when my daughter made her video, I didn't know she made it. And, somebody texted me, hey, did you see Kanaya's YouTube channel? So I went and looked at it. And before, while, I was looking at her funny faces and the issues she raised, I was extremely hurt, and I was ashamed of myself as a mother, because I felt like we've been in Brighton for 27 months. And since I've been here, we have been fighting with the school district. I mean, I work full time. I'm a single mom. and I've spent probably in a given month 20-something hours at the school in different meetings, or maybe in different community events, attending things, or people trying to work on racism and discrimination in Brighton. And just the minute I walk in the room with administration, immediately they look at me and they're intimidated. They're like, here she comes. And I used to feel bad, like, oh, I don't want people to feel like that. But you know what? Yes, here I come again, because here we are again. We're still here. And coming out, we've received lots of threats from people within this community on Facebook. It's out of control. I'm not fazed. I'm not worried. But it is concerning. People are threatening us, telling us, your daughter needs to get in line. It's not okay that she's acting the way she's acting. It's her. It's not administration. And for the superintendent, he's explained it plenty of times, and I did reach out to him, and he did say to me he's willing to work. But I would like to point out there was something in one of the messages he said, like, this is the first time you've brought this issue, meaning he's framing it, getting ready, as if I'm coming to him for some sort of lawsuit. First of all, this is not the first issue. And I said that to him, and he knows that. And I have no intent on bringing a lawsuit unless there's something to bring. And as him making over $200,000 a year, he should be aware of these things, and these things should be prioritized. If you're making that kind of money, you should be set up to fix these issues. And he's not. So I would like things to get forward. I know I was at another meeting, and even sitting here in this room, looking at the board, it is predominantly white men. That's the school district as well. That is constantly who I'm facing. And while everybody, I'm sure, has intent to say, you know what, because you said to me many times, Bill, when I'm ready to work, and I appreciate that, and I know you are. But I would just say that it's too slow, especially for the things that's been happening with my child, And even in her recent issue, in her video, people are saying, she's ranting, it's this, it's that. Of course it's a rant. It's a 14-year-old girl who came home from school. And the reason why some of her issues, they are old, but the reason for the video was a very recent issue. She's attending summer school, and she's not attending because she didn't pass. She got a C in a class, and she's working on a goal, which, I don't push her to be, academia, like, have fun, enjoy your summer. But she's like, no, I'm going to turn this C into a B because I want to be an urban black scholar. And they have certain guidelines, and she wants to hold herself to those standards. And I'm proud of her for that. But even in summer school, she's constantly reminded by the school principal when I'm like, what? Out of everything Brighton has down, and they should not be questioning why she's trying to turn a C into a B. But they are. And he said to her, he reminds her daily when she's there, not daily, maybe every other day, but enough to where, you're here because you want to be. Other kids are here because they're working. So we need you to kind of like, act right in so many words, And so when a white student was very uncomfortable, so this situation, a lot of people aren't aware, it was a YouTube video that some black students were watching for Kevin Hart. He says the word nigga over and over again. That is a black word. That is a word with comedy. They were watching a video. They weren't just slandering this word around with each other. They were watching black comedy. They're black kids. It's their right to watch that in their pastime. And a white student heard it, and they felt very uncomfortable. And they went to the principal, and I'm sure at that moment he probably felt, this is an opportunity to educate. It came at a bad time because just hours prior, a black student got in trouble for that same thing. So these are things that need to be looked at fairly. And he went around and he educated everybody on why don't you say this name. And my daughter spoke up. And I didn't really know about it because the phone call that I received was, hi, Wynette, your daughter, she's not in trouble. However, she was very upset today and I don't know why. That was a lie. He knew exactly why. They had a conversation. He not only had a conversation with her in the classroom when he addressed everyone, he pulled her outside of the classroom and further continued his conversation. Yet when I got the phone call, he didn't feel like dealing or hearing my wrath at that moment because he knew it was out of line that he just said she was upset and I'm not sure why. So this kind of thing, and I know, school district and town may be separate, but I did want to come to put pressure on the town today, because I feel like as town board and elected members, it is you guys, it is your duty to put town on that school district. That school district is within this town. Put pressure on it and tell them, listen, this school problem that we think is separate, it's spilling into our town. It is not, and then not only that, I've been contacted by endless numbers of alums that said, these issues have been going on for decades, so it's not new. It's just not, and then every time I come to him, and I've been hearing, even in, behind the scenes that I'm being told it's just a mother and her family there's just a long-standing history there. I've been in this town for 27 months. What long-standing history? So my goal was to come to put the pressure on the town so you guys can feel it and you can see everything that we feel every day. That pressure that I feel every moment when my child goes to school, I'm at work like, oh my God, is she okay today? How does she feel? Was she able to sit and have a normal lunch? Does she have friends today? Or are her friends afraid to even be her friends because she's speaking out and she's trying to be, herself? And people don't want to be friends with her because now that's just another controversial family. So I urge you guys to just talk to them, and not just talk to them, make them move.
And I did appreciate your coming into the Community Services Committee meeting the other day and, discussing and making us aware of the video and discussing it with us. Thank you. The one thing I would also say, threats can certainly become a police issue. Threats to... No, please.
No. Do you have any idea what happens with the police and the black community?
What I'm
Come on, Bill. Do you not watch the news?
I do watch the
Okay,
news.
well, then you can't say call the police.
I can and I will say that that it is always an option for you to call the police. And under Chief Henderson, I have a high level of respect and confidence that issues are handled. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board in the open forum?
I guess I don't get a second chance.
Mr. Eagle, if there's no one else that wants to speak for the first time, then I'll certainly be happy to have you come back up. But yes, please.
Hi, I'm not even sure if I'm eligible to speak. I actually
Everyone
live
is
next door
eligible
in
to speak.
Pittsford. My name's Nahoko Kawaki O'Connor, 17 Courtney Circle. I came out tonight because I watched the video and I wanted to tell you guys how lucky you are for having somebody who spoke so honestly and so openly and so courageously to bring this out. You have been given a gift. Because for this video, the number of incidents, the number of people who feel this way and have had to deal with this, there are thousands of them. And people do not come up and do not have the courage or do not feel like they want to make waves or make their lives more difficult, which is what usually happens, or get gaslighted or get dismissed. And so a lot of people do not come forward and say this. So you and the school district has been given a gift by this young lady here. And I hope you will feel that way and take this opportunity to figure out how to make this community more inclusive, more welcoming, and not just diverse, but really celebrate the assets and the values that different people from different backgrounds with different cultures bring. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I know I already spoke, but I just want to say one more thing. I'm Mr. Maley. My mom raised me to, not disrespect adults, but with all due respect, I have to disagree, and I have to agree with Sarah. Calling police in Brighton being in my high school, the few that have been in there haven't treated us with respect in our high school, so why would they treat us with respect in a situation in the community? Not only that, but I heard you touch up on a few times about how diverse Brighton is, and I just not sure if everyone is aware of this fact, but 8% of Brighton Central School District is made up of black kids. 8%. So, and not all of them live in the town of Brighton, so.
Thank you, Kanaya. And just so you know, disagreeing with me is not disrespect to me. You're fine. Thank you. Mr. Eagle. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Come on up. Yep.
I think that, Bill, I think you really need to sit with the black people. I would be the last person to want to call the police if somebody's hurting or in need, because I've seen more damage be done. So you really need to sit with the black audience and really listen. Really, really listen.
Mr. Eagle.
Basically, that's what I was going to say, the last comment. But this is not just about disagreement and so forth. So what I'm observing now is you're saying to people, I'm listening to you. Well, people are trying to tell you something that you don't know anything about, apparently, based on your response. Your response to her was, I will urge people to call the police. You didn't ask, why are you saying that? You understand the difference between those two responses? That's a fundamental difference. You know, I know you're familiar with the term hegemony, right? This idea that I got it, you know, I'm right automatically and so forth. So based on some of the things I'm hearing, one of the things that I could see is that you're going to have to reflect deeply on some of the things you're hearing. This is not stuff that you could take lightly. This is about critical thinking. Critical thinking, really, you need to be asking more questions than making statements at this point, based on what I'm hearing. But man, some education needs to take place in this school system and in this town now. I can tell that it does. Because we're talking about institutional racism. When people respond to that idea of the police, that's not anything against the chief. Is this the chief?
Chief Mark Henderson.
This is not personal. People are telling you this is a historical issue, just as the issues they're raising in the school district. Racism, oh man, I want to teach. It's part of the fabric and foundation of this society. It was built right into the economic system, into the political system, into the dominant social system from day one, and therefore is reflected in each and every major institution in the society. Especially and particularly education. The education system, so you know, and I'm going to sit down, but listen, the education system is probably, other than family, the most effective institution in this society in terms of perpetuating racism. You've already heard comments from ex-students explaining in small ways how racism is perpetuated through the system. Those were little. The curriculum, I mean, people mention the curriculum, but the curriculum reinforces and perpetuates racism daily. So that's one thing you need to examine. But I just rose to say the same thing the last person who was here said, is that you really do have to listen. And we're not talking about hearing. Hearing is mechanical, right? You hear me making some noise. But listening is a conscious act. So I would say examine these last comments. Why is this woman saying, no, don't call the police? What's wrong with her? Doesn't she know when you threaten, that's what you're supposed to do? Not if you're black in Brighton. You better think twice. Listen, I met somebody in the room tonight who told me a police story. A woman who was arrested from her own front porch because of the music she was playing. I heard that story tonight. I know there are lots of stories like that in this town. I think it was the last speaker who said, you need to get before a black audience, conscious audience, those of us who know something about this, how it works and how it functions, and ask questions. Why are you saying these things? Because I don't think you really have the reference point that you need to understand the depth of what's happening here. So, again, look, we can help. We're willing to help. We know what we're talking about. We're not talking off the top of our heads. We know how racism functions. And we know some of the kinds of things that we have to do if we're serious about addressing it. So we want to help.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board during the open forum? Yes, sir. Come on up.
I don't have much direct experience with a lot of
And if I could just ask you to share your name and address with us, please.
David Roshan, 75 Towpath Lane. Just saying, I don't have much direct experience with a lot of the issues that have been talked about here. But what I can tell you is hearing these stories makes me ashamed. And it should make every single person here ashamed. We are Brighton, and we hold ourselves to a high standard on many things. And we should hold ourselves to a high standard on issues of race and equity and equality and justice for all of our citizens. And I hold the board accountable for what the school district does. So I want to see Brighton improve. I don't want to stay ashamed for being a member of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any? Yes, come on up.
Hi, I'm Heather Coyne, and I live on Hollywood Avenue at 12 Corners. I want to take a second to thank everyone who spoke out tonight and thank the board for listening. And I would just hope that maybe it's too exhausting at this point to say everything that everyone said to the school board, but I hope you do, because boy, do they need to hear it, very much so. I hope so. I hope, yeah, and it's exhausting. I appreciate that, and I don't want anybody to have to go through it again. And, you know, maybe we could ask them to watch this if they're not already, because boy, I hope they're watching. They need to hear this. Everybody does, but they really need to hear this. It's you guys, and it's them. You know, they have their meetings and nobody shows up because they don't feel like they're going to be heard. And they have another meeting, nobody shows up because they feel like they're not going to be heard, and it's just a shame. You know, we need to hold them accountable, as well as we need to also hold them accountable. So I'll do what I can and what anybody can to try to make the board here. I'm not on the board, just so you know, but yeah, not part of it. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So help bridge the divide.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Hearing none, okay.
Sorry, one quick follow-up. I
If you
understand.
could just share your name again.
Alexei Dutnoff, I'm on Roosevelt Road off of Monroe. I understand that the town board is a separate elected body than the school board.
Correct.
But I believe the town does provide some services to the school district. I'm not sure what they are, other than roads, et cetera. But I would submit there are some levers that you can affect that affect the school board to move in a positive manner. I don't know quite what they are, but I would argue that there are some levers that you can push-pull to get the school board to at least address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Bill, I know you're.
And I'm sorry.
I
if-
know
if
you're
you
a
could-
nice guy.
If you
but
could again,
I'm
your name and
my name
address,
is
please.
Eloise
Yeah.
Johnson. Bill, I think the only way, and all of you white men can get this, is to meet some poverty-stricken families. I call it the broken heart of our city. I don't like to call it the inner city or the ghetto. It has a broken heart. Really get to know these families. Take one family and go on their journey, and then you will wake up more. You can only listen as deeply as you can see. So the hearts need to be opened, and when they open, you will cry for what you didn't see, but you will grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, come on up. Ray, didn't see who it was back there.
Hi, my name is Ray Hittinger, and I live on Warrington Drive. And I just wanted to say that part of Kanaya's video really spoke to me, and Wynette already mentioned it to some degree, that the district, I'm part of the curriculum council, and I have also been on the diversity and equity committee in the school district, and I have a view into what's going on, and there is some work there, but one of the things that concerns me the most in these conversations, well, there's a bunch, but one of the things that I'm thinking about now is how protective the conversations are when considering the feelings of the staff and bringing along staff in terms of equity and diversity. And I think that priority needs to flip to the students, the families of color. That is something that we need to see.
Thank you. Did I see another hand? Well, if not, I do thank everybody who came out tonight.
Bill, I would like to say something.
Absolutely.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Kanaya, I think that took a tremendous amount of courage for you to. And the showing of support that we saw tonight is one of the things that makes Brighton a special community and a wonderful place to live. And so I am very proud of everybody showing up on her behalf and in order to raise awareness about some of these issues. And I want to say that I know that these issues are within the school district, but I don't think that you can separate the community of Brighton schools from the community of Brighton. Bill, you talk about the priorities of Brighton being education, diversity, and sustainability. When so many people in this community move here because of our excellent educational system, I think that we can see that our educational system is tied to our community, to our town. And so I think that this is an appropriate venue for these issues, and I know that we intend to cooperate with the school district on some of the issues of inclusion, diversity, and equity with the IDEA board. And I really do want to say that we intend to take action on these issues, and I want to thank everybody for coming out and expressing their concern.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, I do. I want to thank everybody, and I do acknowledge hearing and listening, they are two different things. And listening is not a one-off. This board is not going to listen in a one-off. Addressing issues of the sort that are before us tonight and before the entire community tonight are not a one-off. There are stakeholders, many important stakeholders in the community There are 5 school districts. We know what we've heard from people tonight. Most of you are in the Brighton Central School District. It's important that there be dialogues with our school communities throughout the town, with other major institutions like the university. But at the heart, ultimately, we're talking about people. And I appreciate everyone who came. Your voices are here, your voices are heard, and we will continue with not only the idea board, but with other efforts to make sure that the reality of Brighton lives up to the promise of Brighton. So I thank you all. You're welcome to stay, but I understand that you may have things to do at home. So thank you.
I want to say one more thing, but not
Sorry, I'm sorry. If you're going to say something, I
Outside.
need to ask you either to say it here.
So you say it to
at
the home audience,
microphone,
too.
Or you can talk
just
outside to
okay,
people.
just really quickly. As much as you guys hold them and the school accountable, hold yourselves accountable too. Vote, go to the meetings at the school, come to the meetings here. If you don't like what this looks like, change it. It is up to you. This is your town and your community. Vote for other people if you don't like what this says or you don't like what this looks like. It is your responsibility to make the town what you want, not theirs. You can only hold them as accountable as they are who they are. So you guys, don't always hold other people accountable because you are also the town and the school.
Well, I know it's a little unusual, but if I could just make one brief remark while we're still in open forum. I am a proud Brighton alum, maybe the only Brighton alum up here at the table. And I heard a lot of great things. I listened, but beyond that, I think I learned. And I think I learned more tonight about racism in the Brighton schools than I ever learned as a Brighton school student. And so I want to thank the audience as well. And I'm excited to work with you, Bill, on these issues and seeing what we can do as a town. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we will continue with the rest of our agenda. And again, you are welcome to stay, but I understand if you have other places to be. I'm going to ask the media, if you want to talk to people, to please do so outside. We do have a meeting to continue. If you're going to stay, I need you. You're welcome to talk outside. We need to keep the doors open because this is an open meeting. But I have to ask everybody to have these conversations outside. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. If we could just make that one correction with the address on Norman Road.
Thank you. Thank you. With that change to 202 Norman Road?
Yes.
And both of you agree to that as a friendly amendment? Yes. Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first public hearing concerns the approval of the demolition of a building located at 202 Norman Road in the town of Brighton, pursuant to Chapter 51 of the Town Code. I'll ask the town clerk, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Supervisor, bear with me one moment.
Dan, I can't hear you.
Sorry, bear with me one moment. can pull that up. Where's that? Almost. So we've had a lot of hearings lately to get through my emails here. Yeah, Supervisor, it was in the July 12th. It was in the July 12th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you. Notice having been given, I declare this public hearing to be open. I'm going to continue to, if the audience is having trouble hearing, we're going to have to try to ask people to carry on those conversations outside. But for the moment, I'll use my outdoor voice, and I would ask anybody that does come to the microphone to address these hearings to do the same. I declare this public hearing to be open, and I'm going to ask Commissioner of Public Works Mike Guyon if you would address the subject of this public hearing.
The subject obviously is 202 Norman Road. We've had some issues regarding the condition of the house. We've gone out and done a condition survey of the house and determined the facility to be unsafe. The public hearing is a matter of process to ultimately demolish the house. We have had interest from the homeowner to actually conduct the demolition of the house, which is a positive thing. I think that's a very good thing.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Okay.
You said the homeowner has asked us to demolish it?
No, the homeowner has not asked us to demolish it, but we have received some input from the homeowner's contractor since we started the process that they are willing or looking at demolishing the house.
Very good.
Looking at, I'm sorry.
I need to ask the people in the lobby. Thanks. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
We're, as part of the process, we have to hold the public hearing, and following the public.
We need one door open. We need a door open. This is an open meeting. Sorry, Mike.
That's okay. Following the public hearing, we'll continue with the process. If the homeowner, basically at this point after the public hearing, the homeowner has 10 days to initiate demolition of the house and 30 days to complete it. If he doesn't, then the town may take action to demolish the house through a public contract.
Thank you for that, Mike. With the public hearing open, is there anyone in the audience that would like to, please?
Good evening. Thank you so much for moving this along, and I can't help but thank you enough, Mike. You've been a real help.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, I'm going
sorry,
to.
For the record.
My name is Guyla Bowman, and I live at 190 Norman Road, next to 202 Norman. And I would like to submit a petition that was signed by the majority of the people on our block that I could catch home. We have a lot of people that are in school or work various hours. This has been a situation where the homeowner has been absent, living in Florida for years. I won't go into the sort of details of why he left the state, but we've tried to work with him for years. I would mow the lawn, other neighbors would mow the lawn, wouldn't ask a thing for it, but I finally drew the line when I got stung by a bunch of ground wasps and had to go to the doctor and get cortisone shots because my leg would not go down. This gentleman I have tried to talk to and reason with, and I think we get the runaround. We know his family. We've known them for years, and we're saddened by this, but he just seems to not want to move forward, at least not in a timely manner. He told me himself that one thing he wanted done, he was trying to, my husband's a contractor, he told him reputable people that this is all they do is demolish structures and clean up the property. He wouldn't see anything to it. He was trying to work a deal. And we think with the contractor that was going to build his son's home, because he was trying to negotiate for him to get a iron cook stove out of the basement and a Victorian baby grand piano out of the living room, even though the trunk came down into the living room and probably the piano isn't worth salvaging. So I think he was trying to work a deal. And the last thing I heard, he said that money had been given to the contractor and he was negligent because now his son was not going to be building on the property and all kinds of stuff. So it's all convoluted. I have no idea what's the truth. But I know that I've had on a personal relationship with 3 raccoons that live there, one with a tail, one without, and a baby, and 1 possum. And our neighbors have said that they think that there have been times when they have seen people, possibly indigent people, coming and going. It's a concern to us because now we have a neighborhood where young families are moving in, they're having more children, and it's just not a safe environment, to say the least. And I thank you so much for mowing the lawn. But that doesn't take care of all the side gardens, and now I'm seeing poison ivy crawling over our fences. And I always want to think the best of people, and I always want to work with them and do good by them. But sometimes people don't want to do that in return. And this is a situation where everybody, with the exception, I'll be honest, but one person who's kind of a rogue anyway, signed this petition because they really, really would like to get that scourge off of our street. Because I think someone here, and I'm not sure it was on the board, but someone, when we have dealt with us in the past, they said, because we mentioned it would devalue our property. And they said, oh, it wouldn't devalue property. It'd probably take you longer to sell it. What's the difference, folks? You know, if each or one of you lived next to this, this would be something that would bother you as well. And I sat there this evening and I thought, I feel so stupid to be here about this when we have situations like what we had to discuss this evening, far more important than this demolishing of a building. And I'm not sure this is the right place to mention this, but I really hope and pray that the board will do what they can to bring to bear changes so that maybe for at least the town of Brighton, this won't be an issue like it is all over our country. But why would we expect civility here when we don't even have it in the highest office of the land? So, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Michael. I still owe you baked goods, and I'll get them to you. I'll bribe people. I don't care. But thank you so much. And
And thank you for sharing the opinions of your neighbors. It is important. It's very helpful for us to hear that, and I know you've been engaged with Mike and trying to make sure this.
And he almost acts like it really is not a problem at all for him to receive calls from me. But anyway, thank you, Michael.
It is not a problem.
Well, if there's anything we can do further, we don't want to be not fair, but I think we've been far more than fair in this situation.
Thank you.
So please keep me informed so I can keep our community informed, and if there's anything we can do to help, we're more than glad to do it.
And we do have a resolution that at the end of the public hearing tonight, I will ask the board to take action on, which will really begin the process that Mike described of a timeline that if the property owner doesn't act, the town will be in a position
In 10 days? Is that what it is? So I'll make sure I understand.
Mike, do you want to again sort of walk through?
Ken, I may need your help on this a little bit. My understanding is after the public hearing and the board closes the public hearing, the homeowner has 10 days to act,
Okay,
but 30 days to complete the demolition.
Okay.
If they choose not to meet within that time frame, the town has the ability to go in. It will take the town a longer period because we have to publicly bid the project, but the town could publicly bid the project and take the house down at that point.
I would ask another thing. I hate to sound like I don't trust, but I'm not a fool either. Are there any safeguards for our community on how he demolishes this and how it will be afterwards? Do we have any say-so in that?
There are. We'll issue a demolition permit, which has conditions on how the house is demolished. Today, we received a report from the contractor, which the homeowner has contracted with, that indicates that the house, it was an asbestos report, which indicates that the house does not have asbestos, a visual. I have to look at that a little bit more in depth, but that in the conclusion, that's what they concluded. So that's a good thing.
Okay,
So,
all right. Would you keep me informed?
you know I will, Guy.
Thank you. You all take care, and thanks so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael Tubbs. I work for Dorizio Construction, and we are working with the homeowner, John Eyrig, at 202 Norman Road to resolve the issue at hand. I know it's been a long process. I was just brought up to speed in the past month, but we have reached contract agreements with the customer. The demolition paperwork has been submitted to the town. I've worked quite closely with Ramsey,
Boehner. Yep.
and the town planner to make sure that our documentation is accurate, including the asbestos requirements and pre-demolition requirements. So I'm just here tonight to represent that customer and ask for some grace in the continuation of our process and allow us to continue our contract.
Do you have any sense, now that you have a contract, what your anticipated timeline would be?
Yes, I am not the owner of the company, just a representative. Our goal would to be within the approval of the permit, to be prepared to start within 30 days of that. So from there, the restoration plan, which is outlined in the permit, does dictate the specifications to how we would leave the residence, as the prior speaker asked on. So there would be a little length of time to make sure that's all done and completed to that contract spec.
Did you say restoration?
That was the wording that was given to me by Ramsey, the restoration plan, but as part of a demolition process.
So the house is still to be demolished, with restoration referring simply to the, we'll call it maybe remediation of the lot?
Yeah,
More
so
accurate?
I wouldn't, remediation
We're not talking about trying to repair the house.
No, sir.
No, the restoration is the ground restoration, the grading and the seeding of the area, along with some erosion control.
I did bring a copy if it's something you'd like to review, but basically outlining our plans for utilities, including the septic system, to have that, you know.
And that's good, that's helpful, that's something I would have you work with Mike and Ramsey.
Right, so the proper
demolition
termination of
process.
all utilities, septic system, demolish and removal of all structural elements, and then site work and final grade to provide a clean, level grass surface.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Just while this gentleman's up there, I would point out to the town board that the resolution I've prepared for you to take action on after the conclusion of the public hearing does envision a time period in compliance with the town code, which is to say that it requires that demolition be commenced within 10 days after today's date. I suppose making the demolition permit application could be viewed as that commencement, but it also requires that the demolition be completed within 30 days after today's date. It does not sound like your company would be able to meet those kind of deadlines. So I'm just wondering whether there might be a desire to modify the resolution or to adopt the resolution as proposed and then have some more informal action to extend those deadlines. That's something you might want to talk about.
I mean, what I'd prefer to do is keep those deadlines in this resolution and have staff work very closely with the contractor.
Okay.
And as appropriate with the owner, to hopefully meet those deadlines. If not, have some pretty good reasons as to why not, and a pretty tight control over any extensions. We don't want this to drag out. It does take us some time because we do have to go through the procurement process.
Right.
If we ultimately make the decision that we need to demolish, and frankly, that's not good for your client.
No,
It would cost them more to have us
absolutely
probably do it.
As part of Ramsey's requirement, the homeowner is in good tax merit with the town.
That's what I understand.
Paid in full. So, while he experienced some challenges to resolve this, today we stand. What is your procurement period for like a bid to contract and like?
Well,
just
rather than really get into that, I guess what I would say is it would be my preference that we act on a resolution with the timelines that are in place, and that way we can continue to make some judgments as to whether you're acting, whether the owner is acting in good faith to move towards final demolition of the building,
okay,
or whether we need to go down a different route.
And along those lines, I think the action item that the town board then would want to keep in mind is at what point in time you would want to put back on the town board agenda authorization to the commissioner to solicit contractors or bids for the demolition project itself. And if we were to look at the strict deadlines in the resolution, you would sort of anticipate that solicitation authorization might be appropriate for the agenda in 2 or 3 meetings from now.
Correct. Yeah.
And those are monthly meetings?
Twice a month.
Twice a month.
And Mike and I will stay in, close review.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
Yes,
Bill.
But I will take Mike's lead, and if it does not appear to us that progress is being made in good faith towards a timely resolution of this, we want it to be done. We would always prefer. It's a better result for the owner. It's a better result for us if the owner takes the lead and does the demolition. So we want to work with you to make that happen.
And
We have some expectations.
Sure, and our concern, to speak on the neighborhood and the neighbors is the length of time that it would go through the open bid process that, while we know we're under the gun, would she be more comfortable if we had a little bit more time? So,
What will be important is that we see good faith progress.
good faith progress.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, you guys will come to that term tonight?
Yes, we have a resolution before us to take action to, to authorize going down our process, so we really want you to
I'll be here.
move quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on the matter of this public hearing? Hearing none, any comments for the record from the board? Obviously, you'll have an opportunity when we vote.
Yeah, there's one more typo where it says 220 instead of 202, and that's the bottom paragraph
Thank you.
of the first page of the
first
resolution.
page, yep.
Where it says 20 or 220?
20, it says 20.
20, yes, yeah, that one we caught earlier. This one was,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it just didn't get caught in time for
Okay,
the town board
got it.
packet.
202, Norman.
So,
Wow.
so in the packet, it's just.
So 202 is the right address and should be reflected throughout the resolution.
Is there anyone further that would like to address the public hearing? Hearing none, I declare the public hearing to be closed. And Chris, can I have a motion?
Bill, with respect to the approval of demolition and removal of the building and structures located at 202 Norman Road in Brighton pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 51 of the Town Code, I move that we adopt the resolution before us, revising, of course, that last paragraph referring, that should properly refer to 202 Norman Road.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing,
Actually, just one
Sure.
question. I'm looking at the resolution in the packet. It's dated June 27th. It looks like
should be July 25th.
Which resolution are you looking at?
This is in public hearings. I've checked the packet that was emailed to us this afternoon and the one that's
Yeah,
online.
that is,
Okay.
that is not the resolution that, hold on, let me see. Whoa, stop.
You may have a, yep.
Is that the one setting the
It
public
is-
hearing?
It should be dated today's date, July 25th.
Right, that resolution that you're looking at
Here.
is in fact not the resolution.
Is that the resolution? That's the resolution setting the public hearing.
There's actually, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The other one in the packet?
Oh, I'm gonna,
No, the following.
Yes, in my hard copy, I do have.
In your hard copy, yeah, my
Hard
question
copy
is,
I have.
in the town board
I do-
PDF, is there one that,
There's just the one, unless it's in a.
let's just be clear about what we're adopting here.
Well, let me ask someone to make a copy of this, so everybody
I'll
has.
print- Bill, Supervisor, I'll go print
Dan
it.
or somebody.
I'm sorry, I just don't know how to. I don't know
And
your
by the way,
codes.
Mike, while you're doing it, I'm going to ask you to do it again here. That one as well.
Dan's got it.
Yep. Once we get the correct document in front of us, we'll ask that Chris and Jason both.
The resolution that you should be getting, if you look at the subscript or footnote on it, marking should indicate today's date, 07/25/18.
That's what Mike is making a copy of.
And then indicating resolution 01.
And then when we've got that, I will ask that Chris and Jason affirm that, yep.
And while we're waiting, just to give you a preview, that resolution, as the statute calls for the demolition and removal of the unsafe building on the property located at 202 Norman Road, and calls for that to commence within 10 days of the date of this resolution and be completed within 30 days hereof, and then goes on to talk about the allocation of the costs. When you see the resolution, that type will be. This
Is there any provision for flexibility in that showing a good faith effort?
There is always the ability of staff to be flexible. We have done that, as you recall.
Yes.
On the last one, and we have that. But again, I can't say enough, because, and we've heard from
Mr. Tubbs,
the entire street virtually how important it is to them. Having signed the petition, they have an expectation, and rightly so, that having taken action, likewise, the action to demolish will occur quickly, and if it doesn't, we will step in. We don't want to step in, but we will. Thank you, Dan. Apologize.
all right, thank you. Thanks, Tom.
And with that,
So it should say.
Just wanted to scan it first. Yeah.
Yep, this is the correct one.
Bill, with respect to my motion regarding 202 Norman and its demolition, I revised my motion to adopt the resolution now before us in hand in hard copy. It dated July 25, 2018, -01.
Thank you, and Jason, you.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. And our next public hearing tonight relates to the proposed smoking and vaping on town property, local law, proposed Chapter 156 entitled Smoking and Vaping. Dan, has the necessary legal notice been?
Supervisor, notice was in the July 12th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you. Notice having been given, I declare this public hearing to be open. And I will ask, is there anyone here to address, well, let me just.
I can speak to the.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead.
Yeah. This is the smoking and vaping local law, which was put before you at the June 27th meeting of the town board. It has not been amended in any way since then. It effectively prohibits the use of electronic cigarettes, cigarettes, and other smoking products, including smoking and vaping.
Pipes, cigars.
All of that.
Yep.
All of that. On town property and town buildings, town structures, land adjacent to buildings and structures as well. Town parks, recreation areas, not limited to trails, sporting areas, fields, parking lots, pool facilities, tennis facilities, and playgrounds. The only possible exception is an allowance for the town supervisor or the designee of the town supervisor to highlight areas where the prohibition would be lifted, either permanently or temporarily. Penalties for offenses would be consistent with what is Article 10, Section 10, Subdivision 3 of the Penal Law, which indicates a penalty of a payment of a fine not to exceed $100. And in addition, there is a penalty provision such that if smoking, for example, is being carried on by somebody who pulled a permit for a recreational facility like a pavilion or something like that, or a park permit, that person or that entity that pulled the permit would have their ability to apply for a future permit revoked for a one-year period of time.
And, the rationale behind that, one exception in the law is a function of our collective bargaining obligations. And that's the only reason I would anticipate making any exception. So you have the local law in front of you, and I'll open up. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on this matter? Judy.
Judy Schwartz, 179 Ashbourne Road. I was not prepared or expecting to speak at all, but I'm sorry to hear that there is a possible exception. Let's just not have any. I mean, then you're going to have cigarettes butts around and all that. We should not have it, I mean, is it that necessary at the time that somebody is on town property of any kind that they can't go without, and when they get to their car? Or
Council has advised me that under our collective bargaining agreement, that is an important exception to have.
So you mean that
Again,
it's more for employees than it is for?
That's correct, and but I anticipate that will be the only exception created for the law.
Okay, and there'll be receptacles or something, so we're not going to see cigarette butts around town hall? Or?
It would not be at town hall. It would be at another facility.
Oh, so it wouldn't be here, okay.
Correct.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That is for, no. This is for the hearing, for the actual resolution.
Hi, my name is Alexi Tatanoff. I live on Roosevelt Road. So it sounds like you guys are outlawing people being able to vape in their own car on town property. Is that accurate?
That would be correct.
It seems a bit burdensome to a person where the smoke would not, if the windows were closed, they could not affect somebody else on the town property.
It would be a very difficult thing to police as to whether somebody had their window open or closed. So I know it seems like there's a bright line there, and there is intentionally a bright line to say no smoking, no vaping, period, because, frankly, because of the enforcement issue. To have somebody peering out their window or having an enforcement officer trying to say, gee, is his window cracked a little, is a little vapor or smoke coming out, would be a very difficult enforcement tool.
And another aspect of the ordinance is the image that it presents and the modeling it shows to our children. These are largely going to be affected in public places where children are very, very present, in parks and in the parking lot over here. And if my 7-year-old grandson walks by a car where an individual is vaping inside, he's going to ask me, Grandpa, what's that? And that's the sort of image we're trying to eliminate. So it's not only just simply the secondhand smoke aspect, and I appreciate what you're saying. Where's the danger of that? It's more the modeling for our children.
So I would encourage you to educate your grandson that this person is vaping or smoking, and that's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for him. And I would encourage the use of speech, not violence, not force. A fine, whatever it is, which if the person doesn't pay, they'll eventually be arrested. Driver's license will be suspended. Ratchet it up, there'll eventually be some force if the person doesn't pay this fine, right?
There's no aspect of law that doesn't involve force.
I agree. That's why I'm encouraging you guys to reconsider if the person is in their own vehicle, their own personal property, and not affecting other people, if they're not harming anyone.
The harm is in the image that
appear
to be a responsible adult vaping sets.
I hear
our children, and I certainly will educate my children, as I hope you do as well.
I definitely, my kids already know and are very sensitive, but I hear that, I heard you say that image, there's a harm in image, and I would counter that, and I would say a crime is depriving somebody of property, liberty, or life. That's how I would define a crime: depriving somebody of their property, their liberty, or their life. I do not see somebody vaping in their car. I would not qualify that as a crime. I understand this would be a town ordinance.
It's a violation. It's not a crime.
Yes, I agree. That would not be a crime. But I would encourage you that to consider an exception. I don't endorse the behavior, but I don't believe that this.
I understand your concern.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's a valid point that any time that you have a public regulation of any kind of private function, there is an imposition on those private rights. And I think that's really what you're getting to, and it's a question of where you draw that line. And, you know, that's a policy decision, obviously, that the town board, in its good discretion, can make. And I hear you expressing you would draw that line in a different place than how this law sets forth. And I think that's a valid point.
Thank you, everybody. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Anybody on the board that would like to address this matter? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing closed. And you have, again, a hard copy of the resolution. Can I have a motion on that, please? Jim?
The resolution before us regarding smoking and vaping local law, I move that the resolution is prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I would just ask if there's any desire on the town board's part to modify the law in any way to allow smoking either in private vehicles or in any other way.
I understand the concern raised, but I've heard on numerous occasions the challenges that staff faces in terms of being able to enforce our actions. And I think it's important that we not put staff in a position of having anything other than, as much as we can, clear direction that a given action is not allowed. And I do have a real problem with the notion of distinguishing valid activity versus finable activity on the basis of a window being rolled up.
Supervisor, I would also note that this policy is consistent with a number of other policies in the area.
Other
For the
towns.
University of Rochester, the psychiatric center up Elmwood, same policies. MCC, SUNY Brockport, and a number of other local universities, they do not make that distinction in their policies.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable with it as well, given that the vehicle itself would be on town property, so.
And the window could be open.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem,
As long as the vehicle is on town property.
Someone's smoking, the window gets open. I really think it's important. But thank you for raising the concern.
No, I believe Alexi raises a fair question, but given the balance, the fact that that individual can move his vehicle very easily off of town property
Yep.
and enjoy
Yep.
smoking a cigarette, for that matter, let alone vaping.
Any further discussion?
I know we've actually been talking about this and reviewing this.
For some time.
For a couple of, since 2 summers ago when we started considering the vaping law where the product could be
Correct.
sold in town. And I know that the American Lung Association has an office right here on Elmwood Avenue, was involved in helping
Heart
us-
Association.
The Heart Association, buying model ordinances. I know we looked to other models to develop this, and I'm comfortable with it as written.
Good.
And thanks to Dan Amon, who brought this to us at the outset, I believe.
Yep.
That time.
And I did talk with Alexandra from the Lung Association and the Monroe County Smoking Coalition this afternoon. Schedule was such she couldn't be here tonight, but they're looking forward to working with us to implement the law. And hopefully, Lexi, your offer for signage is still on the table.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thanks. Any further comments? Hearing none again, I declare this public hearing to be closed. Well, I think we already closed it. We were discussing the motion that was made by Jim and seconded by Robin. If there's nothing further, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file the 3 items of communications?
So moved.
Second.
Mark, would you like to address that first one? No, but
Well, I briefed the board that we had a lateral transfer that had decided to go back to his previous employer. We planned for that. We made a hire, and we wished him well, and we appreciated his service here in the town.
we also have minutes of the board of the Brighton Memorial Library. We also have correspondence from Kevin Bush. I've included it in here even though it's been addressed to a town resident because both Supervisor Smith from Pittsford and I were copied in. It was in response to a communication from Mr. Grossman that we had also received. And while they have indicated that bids have been opened on the east, let me back up a little bit because this is a project we've talked about, the East Avenue paving project. East Avenue, the pavement is in terrible condition and it's a state highway, so the state DOT is responsible for paving. They have also come to the community with a road diet, a pavement diet option, shrinking from 4 lanes to 3. We had a lot of discussion about that and whether there would be a 5-foot shoulder or not. It is our understanding that it will not be a 5-foot shoulder and therefore won't have all of the markings that we would like to see for a bicycle lane, but it will be something that is certainly more bicycle friendly than East Avenue today. And one of the things that will make it so is paving it. However, in this communication, the actual repaving is not going to take place until next spring. And that's disappointing because we had initially, the state had indicated that it would be this year. They do plan, I'll quote the regional director's words, during the remainder of the 2018 construction season, significant pavement repairs will be performed to ready it for winter. And there is a lot that needs to be done to patch and fill all of the holes, all the rough areas along East Avenue. Again, that's a state project. We have been advocating to the state for that work for some time. I would also note that in addition to the paving, there will be drainage improvements made as part of the project with the goal of reducing in the future the problems we have with paving along the curb lane there. A big part of that has been the drainage issues, and we've really seen the work pile up as the rough spots and the potholes are proliferating along the edge. So that is the state's latest update. Mike, what I guess I would ask you to do is continue to stay in very close contact and monitor the work, because if there is one matter that I receive, and I know you do as well, a lot of comments and complaints, it is the pavement on East Avenue, and it's never, people never want to hear it's somebody else's problem. It is a state road. Only the state can pave it. But we can, and I know you will, stay on top and really get some schedules as to when they think they're going to be out, because that's really got to be a priority. It's not a matter of just getting it ready for winter, I don't believe, as they've couched it here. They should be getting it ready for the rest of this driving season, and I hope they'll do that. So we have a motion and a second to receive and file these communications. If there's no further comments, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports, Robin, Community Services.
The Community Services Committee met on Wednesday, July 18th, 2018, at the Brookside Recreation Department. Among the items we discussed were the Buckland Park Trail Loop being maintained to keep the vegetation at bay. I guess it's been creeping up on the trails. Park staff also worked the traffic at the Noble Vice concert, one of our biggest and best attended concerts during the summer concert series over at Buckland Park. Parking was much improved with the U10 soccer teams having been moved to the Brookside schools, and pickup soccer teams being asked not to play during the Tuesday night concert series. We also did a review of the July 4th celebration. Heat did impact our turnout, but overall everything went extremely well. And despite the heat, we did have cooling stations available throughout the event. There was one incident with regard to the fireworks that reminded us that fireworks are dangerous. The finale did fire early, and we did have injury among staff from the fireworks company, Young Explosives. So, but other than that, things did go smoothly. We have changed to a different concessions vendor at Buckland during the concert series, and the vendor and patrons seem to be extremely pleased. With regard to our recreation programs, the summer programs are going well. Camps are full, and we are more than halfway through the summer season. Our fall brochures will be finalized and distributed during the second week of August. Had a small update on the winter farm market, and the redesign is in the works, and we'll go out for another bid. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that we get one that is in line with what we expect. Because we are hoping to keep the target on project in terms of time. We also discussed the Corpus Glen Advisory Council recommendations. Ray Warwick is stepping up to try to get a committee together to be Friends of Corpus Glen. He was unable to attend the meeting that day, but is looking for some direction for the group. The Garden Lovers Club has expressed an interest in adopting Corpus Glen as an area of interest, and we're hoping to put Ray and the Garden Lovers Club together to protect that park. The police department continues to monitor the area and issue tickets for illegally parked cars. A lot of education has been done over the past several weeks during the season, and we are still seeing a lot of infractions in terms of people and pets being in the water. Even though our parking issues have improved to some extent, so we may need to step up enforcement in terms of the water violations. We also discussed the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Committee and where we are in terms of constituting committee. Ms. Vickers did attend the meeting, and she would like to see the committee move along so that students do feel supported by the community. We did talk about membership of the committee. We received a total of 19 applications. 2 of those applications did involve students that are younger than 16, and so we discussed the New York State law and whether they could actually take an oath of service at that age. And so we're looking to finalize formation of the committee and get to work. We also discussed our MAPI, the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative, who did attend our last town board meeting. They are interested in having a town hall meeting here at the town hall during mid-August timeframe. So we'll be working in conjunction with our MAPI to get that set up.
And we actually do have a date and a time. The RMAPI, Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative, will be holding a town hall here in Town Hall on Tuesday night, August 14th from 6 to 8 p.m.
Great, thank you, Bill. We also had an update on the community choice aggregation law. Supervisor Maley has reached out to town supervisors Smith and Seeley in Pittsford and Arundecoit respectively, and a conference call was proposed with the other local Rochester communities in concert with Matt Halliday, who's in charge of the Clean Energy Communities Program out of the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, David Zorn's office. And so we're looking to set up that.
And actually someone from the Westchester Power
Oh, yes, and
group
Westchester
as well. And we are, and I'm hoping that maybe as soon as tomorrow we'll have that
Oh, great.
nailed down.
Great. And ideally, we'd like, after the call, we'd like to have a workshop meeting to engage the community. We also discussed the beautification committee. Sally Constein, Dee Verdat, Patty Taylor Brown, and Louise Novros expressed some concern about some of the aesthetics within the town and wanted to know what the status of the formation of the committee was. We had sent out a request for interested residents to join the committee, and it was advertised much in the same manner that we advertised the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Committee. However, our response was not as enthusiastic as we had hoped. We only had 4 applicants for the committee, whereas the IDEA Committee had 19 applicants. But we did discuss whether this was a result of sufficient public interest or a lack of public interest, or if maybe we could increase our efforts. And so we did decide to reopen the solicitation process for applicants to that committee, and that has begun. I'm not sure how many additional.
We have not gotten any yet, to the best of my knowledge. It is out on all of our social media outlets. It's been sent to all the media and more from the first time around.
So I would encourage people if they are.
It's been nice to see people share it on social media to several of the Brighton oriented social media groups. Yeah.
So if people are interested, we have reopened the call, so please do submit your letters of interest and resumes to Supervisor Maley. We did discuss the Roselawn Garden as well. We're continuing to work with the Roselawn Neighborhood Association to discuss the specifics of a redesign of that garden. And obviously, we discussed the smoking law, which we passed tonight, and work continues in terms of the Buckland Park dredging. Mike continues to work with the Army Corps of Engineers on that matter. Those were all of the items of significance. We did talk a little bit about Buckland Park pickup soccer games that had been advertised on social media, but Matt Beeman, our Parks Director, did work with that group to just keep them off the fields on our busier nights, especially during our summer concert series. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, August 15th at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside School. All members of the public are welcome.
Thank you. Jason, Finance.
Yes, the Finance Administrative Services Committee met on Wednesday, July 18th, and then again on Friday, July 20th. At the Wednesday, July 18th meeting, everything that we discussed does appear on tonight's agenda for further consideration and discussion. And we met again on July 20th in order to discuss our capital improvement plan, or CIP, for the years 2019 through 21, and what the town, and actually all of my colleagues on the town board were present, as well as members of the Budget Review Task Force and members of staff, in order to discuss our forecasted capital improvements and expenditures that we anticipate needing over the next 3 years. We met from about 8:30 in the morning till about 11:45 and didn't get through all of the departments. It's a very heavy conversation. So therefore, we will be meeting a little earlier at our next meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will take place on Wednesday, August 1st. We will be meeting beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning to permit us to get through the remainder of the CIP, as well as our regularly scheduled items on that agenda. We will meet in the stage conference room here at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
And I do appreciate everybody coming out for 2 Finance Committee meetings in 1 week. That was a big commitment of your time, and thank you for that. Thank you to our volunteers as well. Public Safety?
Public Safety met last Tuesday, July 10th, and at that time, we covered a number of things, one of which Brighton Ambulance has had up to 3,200 year-to-date calls, and they are planning for a tentative open house on the 15th of September. And let's see, Brighton Fire also has had 1,331 calls year-to-date, and Brighton Public Works are currently working on the easements for clearance for installation of sidewalks along Clinton Avenue and Elmwood Avenue. And let's see, Brighton Police, we had the National Night Out. Mark, you want to comment on this retirement and potential promotion?
Well, actually, if I could comment on the National Night Out,
All right.
the 7th, it's a Tuesday, it's actually our open house, and it'll be in conjunction with a national effort. So this is the only town board meeting between then and that open house. So as we'll have a number of agencies participating. As far as the promotion,
And that's right here, obviously.
it's
on
right here at the police
Public
department.
Safety
I know it
wing.
coincides at the same time with the Buckland Music Fest, but it'll be out back on the back.
You start at 6?
5. I think we're starting at 5.
5, okay.
That's
So
right,
you can
you
go to
said
both.
August 7th?
It's been a
It's going to go to 8 o'clock, so that
What's the date again?
Tuesday, August 7th.
Thank you.
The resignation we talked about, I'm going to be in executive session talking to you
Got
about retirement.
And comments on the 4th of July?
What I heard was a new traffic plan, new staffing. It was the fastest ever that people were able to egress from the event, which is a good thing. And I got 0 complaints, which is one of the first years ever. Still, all good.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
And then also, Torrington Drive, there were some concerns about speeding, and review of the speed on volume data with residents will be taking place. Mike, you want to comment on that?
Well, at the meeting, the Brighton Police Department gathered speed data. We presented it to the residents. The data generally didn't indicate that there was high or excessive speed along Torrington Drive. More so, there's just a lot of cars. So we'll continue to work with the residents over there and monitor the conditions. We installed, previously there was not a speed limit sign for traffic turning left off of Elmwood, heading on Torrington, so that sign has been installed. Hopefully that'll make the folks recognize the speed limit on that road is only 25.
Good, good. Then under new business, our Fire Marshal Chris Roth has been the recipient of 60 of the carbon monoxide detectors, and I guess he's going to be getting together with Finance and Administrative Services.
In fact, that was one of the items we discussed, and I believe it's on the agenda.
It's on the
tonight.
agenda,
Yep.
and those will be donated and used in
All
the
right.
West Brighton Fire Protection
Very good.
District area.
All right. The next Public Safety Committee meeting will be on Tuesday, August 14th, and we'll begin at 8 o'clock, and that's in the lower level community conference room downstairs. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. And last, Chris, Public Works.
The last Public Works meeting was on July the 10th, which I reported on at our last town board meeting. Our next meeting will be on August the 7th at 9 o'clock.
Thank you. New business, Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $809,192.16. Notable claims include to the Depository Trust Company in the amount of $93,993.75, representing various debt service payments for principal and interest. Also to Hines Concrete Contractor Incorporated in the amount of $81,878.22, representing the purchase and installation of concrete gutters on Willowcrest Drive. Also to Plant Concepts Incorporated for $34,135, representing contracted landscaping throughout areas in the town. And finally, to Suit Coat Corporation in the amount of $26,831.71, representing micropave surface treatment for Rue DeVille and Linden Avenue within the town. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Next item is for approval to accept a clean energy community grant in the amount of $5,000 and to amend the town budget accordingly. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Mike, do you want to
Sure.
briefly talk about this?
Real quick, as part of the Clean Energy Communities Program, we had to complete 4 high-impact areas. We did complete the 4 high-impact areas. As part of that, we were eligible for the $5,000 in grant money. The intent of the grant money is to be used here at Town Hall facilities to replace the incandescent lights or the fluorescent lights with LED fixtures.
Thank you. Further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris, why don't you do the next one, too?
Next item is to amend the table of organization for the Public Works Department to add the position of Geographic Information Systems Analyst to Group 4 of the non-represented employee salary and wage schedule. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
And again, Mike, if you
Yeah,
could
real
talk
quick.
about why this is important.
Real quick, we had to go through the civil service process, what they call the 222 process, to have the position created or have this title created. So we've been through the civil service. They have created the title for us. It will be a civil service position. The importance, I believe, of this title is we currently have it's somewhat robust GIS system, geographic information system. It's very good from a standpoint of showing us pictures. With this GIS analyst, what they'll allow us to do is take data, analyze the data, portray the results on the mapping. It'll help us manage our assets. It'll help us provide information to our residents. It'll help us map routes. The intent also is to hire an individual that has a municipal background, so they can also help us with some of the planning board issues and also possibly some of the engineering and district formation issues. We're looking, it's going to be a tough find. We're looking for a pretty well-rounded individual that has a lot of GIS skills. So it's going to be an interesting hire.
I'm glad to hear you talk about part of it. Part of it's internal, but part of it is getting information out to the public. Can you just give the board and really the community some examples of the kind of information that you anticipate will be able to get out to the public more effectively?
Right now, we receive a lot of inquiries regarding road conditions. How come my road's not paved? How come my road's in this condition? One of the initiatives that I plan on taking this year is to generate a road rating system, which would rely on a GIS system that would be used to gather the data. Based on the data, it would provide a number rating to the roadways. At that point, we could look at that, and you still have to look at it and make sure that the data makes sense. But the mapping could demonstrate the ratings for each road. We could answer residents' questions much simpler, and give them a more precise answer with real data. It would also be a very visual map that would show where the bad roads are in the town, where the good roads are in town, where we need to do work in the upcoming years, where the roads may need a chip seal as opposed to a total mill and repave. Another instance, we kind of use the GIS system now on our website to show where our bulk trash and the containerized trash crews are at the next day or that day. I'm hoping we can refine that and make that a little bit more detailed and make it a little more understandable and easier to read for the residents and a little more precise.
Yeah, I think that's very important information. You and I were just at a neighborhood meeting in another neighborhood, and I think we were both, we talk about it. We talk about it a lot, that those maps are out there during leaf season, now during the lawn and garden debris, but frankly, there were several people from that neighborhood that had there were some that access it regularly, and it was clear that they do use it and find it helpful in terms of when they put out their materials for pickup. But there were others that, and I hope we did some educating, and I hope some people, now understand that that's one data point that they can get off our webpage. So the more we can do that and let people know what we're doing and why, hopefully it'll make their lives easier as well as ours, so much the better. Good, thanks, Mike. This does have some financial implications, particularly as we go out into future years. Mike is multitasking these days, but
I can speak to that, for the most part. As I became Commissioner of Public Works, we vacated, I don't want to say vacated the position, but that we no longer paid the salary of the town engineer, because I have been assuming both roles at this point, and will continue to assume both roles. This position will not require a salary the same level as the town engineer. Therefore, in the initial stages, there will be a cost savings from the salary. But as Bill says, obviously, as we progress, I would anticipate we would be making promotions into the town engineering position. This position has a certain amount of growth to it. So I would anticipate that I don't think this would increase the payroll cost, Bill, but it's certainly at some point. And I believe it would be pretty far down the road to where the cost would become similar to what it was in 2017.
Okay, good. Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize an award of bid to the Dolomite Group to provide materials to be installed as part of the Monroe Avenue GIGP project. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And One last time, Mike.
This is for the porous asphalt for the GIGP project. We had put it out to bid previously. We did not get any bidders, to our disappointment. We put the bid back out, and we have gotten we got one bidder, 2 folks picked it up. The bid prices we're agreeable with the bid prices. They're representative of what the porous asphalt is. So we're recommending the award of that contract. We would like to get it, the intent, honestly, is to get that installed as soon as possible.
Is it still their expectation to mobilize as early as this week?
Correct. The idea is to get out there Thursday or Friday this week,
It's been a tough weather week for
Yep.
everything.
So it's supposed to be nice, so hopefully we can get it done.
Good, thank you. We have a motion and a second on that. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim?
All right, the next item is the acceptance of the 60 carbon monoxide alarms from First Alert with a value of $2,099.40 as part of the 60 years of thank yous sweepstakes. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Thank you, First Alert, and thank you, Chris. This is one of those,
Yeah.
we should have had him buy a lottery ticket that day. I guess Chris was at an event, put his business card in the fishbowl, and was the winner. And so that's a great thing. And the Rochester Fire Department will have 60 more smoke alarms that, as they're out on calls and in facilities, they're able to check. Does a home have a smoke detector, a carbon monoxide alarm, and if not, they'll have a stock to supply them with.
My understanding is that if folks are in need of them, that they can contact the fire department.
And that's the other approach, a
they'll be available
proactive.
to them.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Again, congratulations, Chris, thank you. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, I will start first with our finance director and a summary of, as we do every quarter, we have our expense and revenue reports for the month ending June, so we're halfway through the year and our quarterly report.
Yep.
Paula?
Yep, we are. We're halfway through the year. We're going to look at January through June. I just want to remind everybody, we are going to examine just the general highway and library funds, as they're the largest funds and have the greatest impact on the numbers. So in those funds, we have expenditures of just over 25 million. We've budgeted a tax levy of 14.7 million. We've utilized about 1.18 million in appropriated fund balances and 85,000 in reserves. So we've got 9.2 million in all other revenue sources to support our appropriations. So the revenues of the 9.2 million, about half, a little over half of those represent our sales tax revenue and our mortgage tax revenue. Sales tax, we budgeted at 3.8 million. Our mortgage tax is 950,000. Sales tax is generally paid quarterly, 4 times a year. There's a lag in the first payment because the February payment really belongs to December. So our first payment did come in May, and I'm happy to tell you that it was 925,000, which is the 3rd highest payment overall, and it is the best first quarter payment we've had ever. So we're trending ahead of budget, even though I realize it's only 24%. I'm hoping that trend continues. We had 2 good quarterly payments in 2017. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the economy continues to grow and our sales tax does as well. With mortgage tax, we receive that twice a year in June and December. The news isn't so good there. We had our first payment come in June, our first semi-annual payment, and it was $266,855,000, only 28%. Remember, we're at 50%. So that's lagging. And the other bad news with that is it's the lowest amount that we've received in the first semi-annual payment since 2001. Not such good news. I'm hoping it's an anomaly. I'm hoping all of our sales pick up and we have lots of people moving into the town of Brighton. We're going to watch that. We're going to keep our eye on that.
And a lot of that, of course, yes, some of it's sales, some of it's
Right.
refis.
Yep.
And with the rates having gone up, when rates start to go
Eked
up,
up a
there's
bit.
often a rush to refi. But at some point, everybody that's going to refi does. Now, that half of the year is always the smaller of the two payments. It doesn't include these busier summer months when we would normally get more of our sales. And as we highlight every year, as we prepare the budget, that mortgage tax line is probably the most, well, there's no probably about it, it is the most erratic line in the budget. It gets whipsawed by interest rates. It gets whipsawed to a certain extent, certainly by the economy, by the supply of homes. It's a wonderful thing that supply is so tight. It keeps prices strong, but at the same time, when people can't even find a house, the number of closings go down and the mortgage tax received goes down. So that's, as you said, clearly something we're going to have to watch, but it is one of those revenue sources that really is completely beyond our control.
It is. So I'm hoping that our sales tax really kind of boosts up, and then if there is a gap, that would be covered by our sales tax. So of the rest of the revenues, we've got about 4.5 million, and that's mainly composed of things like departmental income, intergovernmental charges, state aid, pilots, property tax interest, and interest income. So for the first 6 months, 50% of the year, we've collected 33% of our budget, but don't panic. Some of that is because some of our state aid and our federal aid tend to come in later in the year. What we've seen is we've got good trending in pilot revenues as we would, as like taxes, we tend to collect them in the first quarter of the year. So those are at 91%. We've got departmental income at 61%. Interest earnings doing much better this year. We've started investment activities. We're at 63% there. And license and permits are at 57%. So the rest of our areas are doing well, even though overall we tend to be lagging because we've got about $230,000 in state revenues we don't receive until September, and there's a federal grant out there that's quite sizable. We won't be seeing any money until later in the year. So let's look at our expenditures now. So we've got $25.8 million in planned expenditures, and almost 75% of that relates to our wages and benefits for the active and retired town workforce. So you would expect that we're halfway through the year, and yes, indeed, our salaries are at 46.9%, trending just slightly under budget, but that's normal for where we're at, so we're doing well on our budget side. Overtime, however, is where we can fluctuate. And we've got an overtime budget of $396,000, which is respectively the police department, highway department, and they're about 50-50. Police department is doing great. They're at 49%, trending well. And our highway department is up a little bit. They're at 68.9%. And with the summer months, I would expect that to eke down just a bit until, of course, we hit snow season where we might just actually, depending on the winter we get, see that increase as well. We've got our employee and retirement benefits, which is about almost 6.4% of those expenses. 3.1 million relates to medical insurance premiums and dental benefit payments for active and retirees. And through June, we're a little bit skewed because we always make the payment at the end of each month for the following month. So we've made 7 payments out of the 12 in June, so 59%, and our premiums are at 54.5%. So again, trending right on and a little bit below, which is good. Another $2 million is provided to New York State retirement system, and that's always on target. Even though we won't make our final payment until December, we only show 25% as expended. That's from January to March. We won't see numbers or payments until our next bill, which goes from April 1st to March 31 of the following year, so 75% of that will be booked in the current year. So that's always on trend. So aside from that, we've got about 6.2 million in other expenditures. That would be equipment, that would be our contractual expenses, utilities, insurances, and so on and so forth. So year-to-date, we have actually spent 2.9 million, or 43% of the over 6 million. We've got encumbered just under 2 million. So even though we're trending for a total at 4.93 million, 72%, again, the lion's share of that is going to be, or almost 30% is going to be encumbrances, which is, again, we're locking up that money so that we don't spend it on something else. We've got plans in the budget, they're locked up on purchase orders, but we actually haven't spent the money yet. So again, looking at that 43% being halfway through the year, we're trending well there as well. For supplies and materials, we've spent 1.3 million, which is about 35%, and we've encumbered another 41%. So that's trending at 76%, which we would think, again, that's high, but looking at actuals, again, our bills may not be coming in as timely. It is the busy season. I know Highway will be spending more of their money through the warm weather months. So we're looking good there. We've spent 94%, or almost 100% of our budget for property and liability insurance. That's absolutely normal. We tend to pay those bills in totality for the year. So again, right on trend, just a little below where
Actually,
we want to be.
94% is pretty good.
It's awesomely good. And then we've got capital outlays. And what we've got on just the capital outlays in the budget, this does not count our projects. We've spent about 280,000. Of our 680, we've encumbered 300,000, or 59%. So that part of the budget, we're looking at spending that out totally, but again, not as of yet. We've only spent the 280,000. Utilities are on target. We've expensed out 49% of that, or 182,000 of our $380,000 budget. And again, through these warmer months, we would expect to see our heating go down, but our electric will go up, maybe for air conditioning for the buildings. But everything is running, again, right on trend. Our debt service is the last category we talk about. It represents about 4% of our overall budget. Debt service is always on time. We have the payments are scheduled, they're made, and we are on time with those. So during the second quarter, I would say our expenses are trending right on target where they should be. I am concerned about our mortgage tax revenues, so we are going to keep an eye on those. We're increasing investment activity, so we should see a bump up in our interest earnings, and I'm hoping that our sales tax continues to perform strongly. So we're going to watch for some negative trends, and hopefully if we discover that there are those kinds of trends, we can act quickly to modify our budget and take any action if necessary.
Thanks, Paula. Very, very detailed, but very helpful. And of course, the report itself has even more information, and you have that available. Robin, can we have a motion to receive and file that report?
On the motion to, or I have a motion to receive and file the semi-annual report.
Of expenses and revenues.
Expenses and revenue.
And Jason, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. You know, in that discussion of town finances is very apropos, because we are in the midst of our budget development season, as was alluded to earlier by Jason. We're in the capital improvement plan section of that, and like any organization, we track our capital investments very closely. As the controller recommends, we do a long-term, a 3-year capital improvement plan. We roll it out a year each year, so we know what heavy equipment, what vehicles, what infrastructure, what other significant software or other major capital type expenditures are going to be, not just for the coming year, but on the longer term, so we can plan accordingly. That's a process that our Sustainability Oversight Committee and our Budget Review Task Force, two citizen volunteer committees, work with us on, and their input is valuable. Once we finish that process next month, we will be putting the 2019 portion of that capital improvement plan as part of the basis for our tentative budget for the full town operations. And as always, that's a process. It's a very challenging process. It has not gotten any easier. We're in a situation where, while we have engaged in a number of ways, for example, to reduce our costs of health care through high deductible plans, which really have been a win-win for many of our employees who are able to reduce their portion of premiums, get a health savings account, but it's also helped the town in terms of our healthcare costs. But we're, it's, you know, Sisyphus. We're rolling the rock up the hill. The hill is not getting any smaller, and as we look at, you know, a 9.5% cap, we're hoping, we've had some meetings with Brown and Brown, we're hoping that number and expecting that number to be a little less, but it will be well above the 2% number that the state will use as our starting point for the tax cap this year, and other expenditures as well. Energy expenditures. One of the reasons we're so focused on sustainability is that energy prices have again risen, as all of us that go to the pump know. And that's not just fueling our vehicles. It's obviously heating our buildings, but it is things like the porous asphalt that Mike talked about that are carbon-based, but are no less important to our operations. So we fight very, very hard to try to keep our tax position as manageable as possible. We do not have a lot of growth in our tax base, and that's why it is so important, I believe, the redevelopment of projects like the proposed redevelopment of the Whole Foods parcel. When you look at the total tax revenues, not just to the town, but to the school district and the county, we estimate that will be a $400,000 per year revenue generator. But just as importantly, it will enable the town, through incentive zoning, to demand that the developer construct, acquire the land for the Auburn Trail. Nearly 2 miles of rail to trail, very similar in construction to our fantastic Brickyard Trail. That's a project we've wanted to build in Brighton for 20 years. With with the Whole Foods Plaza moving forward, that will be built at no cost to taxpayers. Traffic safety improvements, a driveway that will connect all of the businesses across Monroe Avenue from the Whole Foods Plaza, constructed by the developer. That will, again, further reduce accidents because we will be able to, drivers will be able to ingress and egress at signalized intersection. To get in or out of that plaza one way or the other, you almost have to make a left turn. And doing it with a signal will dramatically improve safety and also improve traffic performance. The fewer accidents, the fewer traffic tie-ups there are. Though the land as well that the developer is going to be donating, I've seen some misstatements. There's some people out there that are either reading old versions of documents, but if you read the final environmental impact statement, the value of those amenities is $1.7 million. That is a very, very significant and really value-generating amenity, in addition to $400,000 a year in tax returns. I talk to seniors all the time who are concerned about their ability to stay in their homes, commercial development like this provides shopping alternatives. And no supermarket ever sent a child to school. So for our school district, it's an opportunity to generate much needed revenues with little, if any, increase in expense. And frankly, it's the same for us, very little increase in expense. So that's the reason I know I voted, this entire board that was able to vote did. We've been sued. In fact, we've been sued 3 times. One of those lawsuits has already been dismissed. The court looked at the claims and ruled in our favor on every one of them. Several of those claims, I believe, will carry forward into these other pending lawsuits. You know, I think there's been good dialogue in the community. We held 5 public hearings. I'm continuing to talk to a lot of people. And I know some people continue to have concerns about the project. That's okay. But more and more people understand the great benefits. And I keep going back to the revenue generation is very, very important for the entire community. So we've talked about the Ramapi Town Hall. I also want to make sure people know about our comprehensive plan public information meeting. A week from tomorrow, Thursday night, August 2nd, that will be from 7 to 9 p.m. It's going to start up here in this very room with a presentation from our consultants on the final draft of the comprehensive plan. And then we'll be going downstairs for an open house setting where people will have an opportunity to talk again with staff and our consultants at several stations, looking at various different components of our draft plan, and with an opportunity for public input, stickers, you know, that people can write comments, pro or con. We're getting very close to the end of this process. I would again remind everybody that it's a process that was funded through a state grant of $300,000 that made what is an important, you know, we're on approximately a 10-year cycle for our comprehensive planning. And it's important that we maintain that because our comprehensive plan is our roadmap. It's our roadmap for all sorts of land use decisions, and having it updated, and in particular this time around, having it updated with an eye on sustainability. Sustainability is the thrust of the grant, and sustainability is a very important thrust of the comp plan. So August 2nd, 7 to 9 on the comp plan right here. Gideon Cobb Days last weekend. Thank you, Ray Tierney, who organized it, but thank you, Historic Brighton. And thanks to the people that came out. Great luncheon talk on history, Rochesterville, and some of the other settlements along the Genesee Valley in the 19th century. Great opportunity on Saturday afternoon to learn more about the War of 1812 and the role that this area played in the role of 1812. I learned a lot. It's one of those, you know, almost forgotten wars. And people forget why it was fought. Depending on which side of the Canadian border you're on, you'll hear a different answer as to who won the war. But the bottom line is both Canada and the United States were able to get on with their growth, with their, the United States with its independence, later Canada ultimately from England. You know, it was a great learning experience, and we really appreciate not only Historic Brighton, but also Brighton Rotary, Dollinger Associates, and the Brighton Chamber of Commerce who sponsored that event. So that's my report from the supervisor's office. Matters of the attorney, Ken? Matters of the town clerk?
I have nothing this evening.
Matters of the town board?
Couple items. With regard to our rec programs, we're continuing with our exciting summer offerings. Brochures are available online at BCSD Buildings, Town Hall, Brighton Memorial Library, and the Brookside Recreation Center. There's still lots to see and do in the recreation department, so do check out our exciting offerings. And Our town pool will be open through August 17th. Again, there's a $3 fee for residents, $6 for non-residents, $40 season passes are available for residents only. Please do check us out. And finally, we continue with our summer farm market and our summer concert series. The summer concert series are on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And this week,
We got rained out last night.
yeah,
Unfortunately. But weather permitting, we'll be back next Tuesday.
Right.
6:30 at Buckland Park.
Yeah, we'll have Fat City join us on Tuesday, July 31st. And that's all the items I have.
Thanks, Robin. Any other matters of the town board? Then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment and appointment of particular people?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Stuck it out. And our next town board meeting will be August 8th, right here in Town Hall, 7 p.m. Have a great evening, everybody.